They thought the mountain had swallowed their young. The alien pack, massive, fur bristling with grief, stood in a silent circle around a crater of shattered ice. No tracks, no scent, no hope. Their world had rules, and one of them was simple. Anything the Frostfall takes never returns. But then a shadow moved in the blizzard. A human bare-armed Frost, clinging to her eyelashes, stumbled into view. And in her shaking arms, every single missing cub. Alive, the elders froze. Because nothing, not even their strongest hunters, ever walked back out of Frostfall. If moments like this hit you right in the chest, go ahead and tap like. It helps more people find these wild HFY stories. And if you're new here, feel free to subscribe for more jaw-dropping human moments. Share it with someone who loves a good humans are terrifyingly amazing story. The storm hit long before dawn, turning the ridgeline into a wall of white noise. The pack gathered on the high shelf, their breath rising in clouds as they searched the swirling dark below. Cubs didn't wander this far. They didn't slip past the sentries, and they definitely didn't cross into Frostfall. Yet the ground told a different story. Shallow prints, small, frantic, led straight toward the cliff's broken edge, where the ice had collapsed into a jagged bowl. The elders stared, ears low, their rumbling grief echoing between the rocks. No one needed to say it. Everyone knew what the crater meant. The cubs were gone, and Frostfall had taken them. A low howl rolled through the storm, one of the mothers, her voice cracking as she called for her youngest. The wind answered with nothing but cold silence. Even the warriors kept their distance. There were wounds that claws couldn't defend against. Then the ground trembled. Not from footsteps, but from something deeper, a groan beneath the ice itself. A warning, the kind that made even seasoned hunters step back. Frostfall was shifting again. The eldest raised his muzzle, pupils narrowing. "No one goes down there," he growled. It wasn't caution, it was law. Frostfall didn't return what it swallowed. But far below, almost hidden by the storm, a faint shape moved. She should have turned back hours ago. Any reasonable person would have. But humans have a strange relationship with danger. They don't always avoid it. Sometimes they chase it down like it owes them answers. Her name was Hana. Small frame, wine-burned cheeks, and a jacket that was absolutely not designed for a sub-zero alien mountain. But she moved with purpose, every step sinking deep into powder as she followed the faint, scattered prints, barely visible to anyone else. The pack had searched in formation. Hana searched alone, yet somehow she saw what they missed. Tiny claw marks. A patch of disturbed frost. The slight drag of a tail too heavy for a frightened cub to lift. The signs weren't obvious, but she read them like lines in a book she'd grown up with. And then she reached the edge. The crater yawned before her, a jagged mouth of ice, breathing cold air that stung her lungs. No sane human would climb down there. But Hana had already spotted something half buried in the snow. A bit of fur, still warm. She swallowed hard. If the cubs were alive, they didn't have long. And if Frostfall had them, she was going in after them. Hana lowered herself into the crater, boots slipping on ice that felt more like glass than snow. The cold wasn't just temperature, it was a presence, settling on her skin like it wanted to claim her too. Her breath turned into crystals that drifted instead of falling. Even sound felt slower here. About 10 meters down, she heard it, a tiny, muffled chirp. Her heart kicked. Cubs, still alive. She pushed deeper, squeezing through a narrow split in the ice where the wind couldn't reach. The world dimmed to a pale blue glow, the walls shimmering with frozen minerals that pulsed faintly, like veins under skin. Frostfall wasn't just a place. It was a living system, a labyrinth shaped by its own strange rhythm. Another cry, then another. Hana hurried toward the sound, turning a corner, and froze. 3 cubs huddled together on a ledge, trembling but unharmed. But beneath them, In the chasm, something shifted. A ripple under the ice. A dark shape swimming beneath the translucent floor, circling like a shark beneath a sheet of thin glass. So that was the truth. It wasn't the cold that killed things here. It was the thing that lived in the cold, and it had noticed her. Hana didn't breathe. The ice beneath her boots vibrated softly like something huge was brushing its underside. The cubs whimpered, pressing against her legs the moment she reached them. They knew that sound. They knew what hunted here. Okay, I've got you," she whispered, scooping the smallest against her chest and nudging the other two to cling to her jacket. Their tiny claws dug in, trembling. The shape below moved again, faster, no time. Hana backed toward the narrow passage she'd squeezed through earlier, each step careful but desperate. The ice groaned, cracking in thin spiderwebs beneath her weight. A cold wave pulsed upward pressure from the creature rising. Then the surface bulged. Hana didn't think. She lunged into the tunnel, twisting her body to shield the cubs as the ice behind her exploded upward in a burst of shards and freezing mist. A massive, pale limb slammed where she'd just been, the impact shaking the cavern. She climbed, clawed, dragged herself upward with raw determination, the cubs clinging like living scarves. Halfway up the crater wall, the wind hit her again, violent, slicing, trying to knock her back down to whatever waited below. But Hana kept climbing, step by step, against all odds. She was taking them home. The storm was still raging when Hana reached the top barely. She hauled herself over the rim and collapsed onto the snow, gasping hard enough that each breath felt like fire in her chest. The cubs clung to her, whining softly, burying their faces in her coat for warmth. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then shadows emerged through the blizzard. The pack. Dozens of massive forms circled her, their eyes glowing in the stormlight. Warriors tensed, mothers trembled, elders stepped forward in disbelief. No one approached Frostfall. No one survived Frostfall. And absolutely no one returned carrying its stolen young. Yet there she was. A human shaking, frostbitten, barely conscious, holding all of their cubs, like it was the most natural thing in the world. One of the mothers approached first. Huge, scarred, fierce. But her voice broke into soft, trembling sounds as she gently lifted her smallest from Hana's arms. The others followed. No growls, no suspicion. Just shock, relief, awe. Hana pushed herself up, shivering. "They're safe," she whispered. The eldest bowed slow, deliberate. A gesture reserved for legends. The pack followed one by one, lowering their heads to the tiny human who had walked into the mountain's mouth, and returned with everything it tried to take.